Is now called to order. And before I begin, let me acknowledge the presence of Senator Robin Padilla. As you know, the Senate practices a 4-day work week, meaning we work 10 hours a day from Monday to Thursday. Friday is actually the start of our weekend. Because we work 10 hours a day. And because of the urgency of this bill, and we all know that we need to get this approved prior to the sine die break of the Senate, which is May, what? Kailan ba sine die natin? Huh? June 3. May 31 is the session. No? We end our session May 31. No? So we need to get this approved and ratified. No? The ratification is another process. So we need to get this ratified before May 31. So I'm deeply honored and excited that Senator Robin Padilla is here despite the rest day of the Senate. No? So evidently that he supports the extension of this bill, and he wants to see that this bill gets deliberated and hopefully passed, no, as soon as possible. We're also joined by Senator Binay, who's with us virtually. We also recognize his presence. So with that, let me direct the committee secretary to acknowledge our resource persons for today.
Magandang tanghali po. For today's public hearing on the estate tax amnesty availment extension bills, we have the following resource persons. From the Department of Finance, we have Undersecretary Dakila L.T. Napao. From the Bureau of Internal Revenue, we have Ms. Maria Luisa Ibelen, Mr. Larry Barcelo, and Ms. Floridette Coales. From the Land Registration Authority, we have Attorney Jeline Avril D. Del Rosario. From the National Economic and Development Authority, we have Assistant Secretary Sarah Lynn Daway Docanes and Mr. David Felix Bunao. From our revenue district offices, we have Mr. Hanwario M. Girang III, Ms. Clea Marie P. Pimentel from Trece Martires, Cavite, Ms. Yolanda C. Zafra from Talisay City, Cebu, Mr. Monib Y. Dimalomping from General Santos City. And from the Tax Management Association of the Philippines, we have Attorney Suzette Celicius. That will be all, Your Honors.
Thank you, ComSec. Today we'll be tackling 5 bills. No, 4 Senate bills and 1 House bill. And let me just read into the records the 4 Senate bills. SBN 215, entitled An Act Extending the Period of Availment of the Estate Tax Amnesty, amending for the purpose Republic Act number 11213, as amended, otherwise known as Tax Amnesty Act, authored by Senator Bong Revilla. And then SBN 217, the same title, authored by Senators Zubiri, Legarda, and Villanueva. And then SBN 2174, the same title, authored by Senator Nancy Binay. And then SBN 2197, same title, authored by yours truly. And then we have received the transmittal from the House, HBN 7909, of the same title, authored by the Speaker Romualdez and our other congressmen friends. So with that, let me inquire from Senator Padilla if he has any opening remarks. Sir?
Magandang hapon po sa ating Einstein ng Senado, Senator Gatchalian, at sa atin pong ginagalang senadora mula sa Makati, Senator Nancy Binay, at sa lahat po ng ating mga bisita. Wala na po akong masyado pang paligoy-ligoy pa, mahal na tagapangulo. Magtatanong na lang po ako mamaya. Salamat po.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Revilla. May I inquire from Senator Binay if she has any opening remarks, being an author of this bill?
Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, and to all resource person. And syempre, ang kay Senador Robin Padilla. No opening statement, Mr. Chairman. We can proceed with our resource person.
Thank you, Senator Binay. I was in receipt of communication from Senator Joel Villanueva, who is also an author of this proposed measure, and he has an opening statement. But let me direct the committee secretary to just insert the opening statement of Senator Joel Villanueva. All right. So with that, I just have a very brief opening statement since Senator Padilla mentioned Albert Einstein, no? Paborito namin yung scientist na yan. So let me start off with that. And I have one of his favorite quotes. He has a lot of quotes, but let me just flash on the screen a favorite quote of mine. And I think also the same with Senator Padilla. No? Let me just flash on the screen. So this is the quote from Albert Einstein. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So this is the second extension. And if we are expecting a different result, Einstein will probably call us insane. So we support, generally there's support to extend the tax amnesty, but we need to also determine, first of all, why is it very difficult for our constituents to avail of the tax amnesties? What are the complications that they are encountering? What are the difficulties that they are experiencing on the ground? And how do we address those difficulties and improve on the process? We're here not to just extend on the date. We're here because we want to make it easier for our constituents to avail the tax amnesty. I don't want to be called insane, because we want to improve on the process. So today, even though the direction is to extend it, we also want to analyze what are the problems that our constituents are experiencing whenever they avail and pay their estate tax. So with that in mind, we invited experts from the private sector and also from the government to shed light on what are the issues what are the issues our constituents are experiencing whenever they avail of this measure. And let's be honest. No, I think what's important here is to be honest, because personally, I also hear a lot of stories from our constituents. Some of them, not some of them, a lot of them are not good in terms of experience. And later on, we will discuss that. No? And what we want to do here today is to make sure that whatever we approve, whatever version we approve, will redound to the benefit of our paying taxpayers. No? Benefit in terms of making it easier for them, and benefit to our government because we're collecting extra revenues. No? The whole point of this is to collect extra revenues. But if it's difficult for our constituents, then we don't collect anything. No? So we go back to zero. No? So again, we like to hear from our experts on how to improve on this measure other than the dates. And we will rely on your suggestions to come up with a very effective bill. So with that, we'll start off with some basics. No? We want to hear, number one, the position of DOF, who is supervising the BIR. And there are several versions that were filed, and we want to hear your opinion on the different versions. Bearing in mind that medyo fast break po itong ano natin. So we want to tackle everything this afternoon. Hopefully, we will not have another hearing. We will do away with the technical working group. So this hearing is a de facto technical working group as well. So that our target is by Monday, latest Tuesday, we can sponsor this on the floor. Hopefully, with the support of Senator Padilla and Senator Binay, we can get votes. And then before we adjourn for Sine Die, we get this ratified. No? So that's the target. So we start off with DOF, their position on the matter, some basics. How much can we collect in addition? What are the problems that they are encountering? What are the suggestions on how to improve the bill? No? We start off with DOF, BIR, and then we go with our puro ano pala ito, no? Puro BIR pala kayo eh. Oh, okay. Ito pala. Andito pala. Then we go with the private sector suggestions, no? And then we wrap up our hearing. All right? So, Yusek Napao, you have the floor.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Good afternoon, Honorable Chair. Good afternoon also to Senator Padilla and also to Senator Nancy Binay, the other resource persons and Senate staff and colleagues. Honorable Senator, please allow us to deliver first our prefatory statement of support to the proposed measure. The Department of Finance expresses its support for the proposed extension of the availment and period coverage of the Tax Amnesty Act, given the laudable intention of the bill. Through this bill, those with unsettled or unpaid estate taxes are encouraged to clear themselves of their obligations, transfer the property to the rightful heirs, and help the government increase tax collections. It is worth noting that the most important purpose of the estate tax amnesty, as it would encourage settlement of estates, is to release property of unsettled estates so that they may be made subjects of business transactions. Such properties after settlement may be sold, leased, subject to joint venture agreements, or such transactions that will have tax consequences and will then result in tax collection for the government. We further note that collections from estate tax from this estate tax amnesty program amounted to 7.4 billion, covering the period of 2019 and up to March of 2023. We'd also like to mention that collections from the tax amnesty on delinquent accounts amounted to 8.2 billion from covering the period 2019 to June 2021. That program on delinquent accounts ended in June 2021, while this measure, tax amnesty on estate taxes, will end this year, June. So the DOF believes that to fully achieve the purpose of the tax amnesty law, we deem it necessary to further extend the availment of estate tax amnesty not only for our fellow countrymen, not only that our fellow countrymen will benefit from this, but it will also allow the government to have additional revenues which will finance its priority infrastructure and social programs. The Department of Finance will continue to extend efforts to prioritize the passage of measures that will help our economy back to its pre-pandemic economic level. We will provide specific details together with our BIR team on the different bills, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yusek, let's start with the basics. You mentioned earlier that the first amnesty and the extension yielded 7.4 billion, correct?
Correct, Mr. Chair.
And what was the target based on the first amnesty and then the extension? Obviously, during the extension, the targets were also discussed, but we want to know how much was the initial target during those discussions.
The initial estimate, Mr. Chair, was around 6.3 billion. During the first amnesty, that was the original amnesty that ended in 2021. it yielded only around 4 billion. But the subsequent extension added around 2.5 billion. That's why we now netted 7.4 billion. Mr. Chair, the amount is 4.8 billion for the first amnesty until June 14, 2021. The extension from June 2021 up to March 2023, we added some 2.5 billion for a total of 7.4 billion, Your Honor.
If that is the case, the target is 6.3 and they've already collected 7.4, so we're above target. Why do we need to extend again?
We understand, Mr. Chair, that although there was that encouragement on the part of various availers, there are still various or individuals that have yet to avail and settle. Also noticed that the version that was passed by the House included deaths prior to 2021. This, I think, considered those that died during the 2-year COVID pandemic, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, correct. I think most of the versions, the period of the coverage period was extended to 2021. No? So meaning those who passed away 2021 and prior will be able to avail this. And the underlying reason for that is the COVID pandemic. So as a matter of an extension of support, we also extended the coverage period. But I just want to put the basics first. No, I know anecdotally there are a lot of people requesting for an extension. No? Even to me, I talk to a lot of people. But do we have data on how much can we still collect if we extend? I mean, these are just anecdotes, people, friends, family who come to you and ask, maraming nagtatanong, may extend ba? So by the mere fact that they're asking, there is demand to extend it. But do we have any data specifying or indicating or just estimates on how much more can we collect if we do extend the amnesty?
Mr. Chair, may I seek the help of the BIR?
Yes.
If they have,
Anyone from the BIR? Just estimates, no? Obviously, targets are aspirational in most cases, but at least it will guide us, on what are we expecting, no? Because we don't want to extend just for the sake of extending, no? I think it's bad practice to extend without any valid reason at all, no? So to put some science and some logic into this extension, let's do the basics first, no? What are the targets? What do you expect? Do you expect a few more billions from this? Anyone from the BIR, Assistant Commissioner? Or si Ma'am
Good afternoon,
Belen?
Mr. Chair and honorable members of
Chairman.
the Ways and Means. Yes,
Senator Binay, go ahead.
Hindi, siguro just an additional question kadugtong din nung tanong nyo. Do they have estimates na what if we don't include yung 2021? May ganong data ba? What would be the estimates kung wala yung 2021 and we just extend the original time frame? Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
So there are two questions. One is how much do we expect to collect if we do extend the availment until 2021, or we just extend the dates, coverage dates, but don't extend the availment. We end at 2017. No? So there are two questions there. So, but both requiring estimates, no? A target. So, meron ba tayong ganyan na we can work on?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and honorable members of the Ways and Means. Actually, Your Honor, we have not yet come up with the data on that. What we have now is the collection from the first amnesty and the second amnesty. It would appear from the first amnesty that we collected 4 billion, Your Honor, and despite the some portion of that amnesty affected by the pandemic, and then the second amnesty we collected 2 billion plus, 2 billion plus. That's 2.5 billion. The first amnesty is 4.8 billion, Your Honor. So with the extension of the coverage and the extending also the period from this December 30, 2021, we expect more revenues to be derived, Your Honor.
What is that, no? How do we quantify that expectation? Again, no, puro anecdotes tayo, requests from our constituents and friends, but is there any computation based on your based on maybe a simulation that you have conducted? Meron ba tayong ganyan? So that we will be guided, no? I think we start from there because if we extend, the logic here is we come up with an amnesty and then we exhaust everyone. We encourage everyone to pay. Hopefully, we exhaust everyone already. But now we're extending it again because we're saying we haven't exhausted all those who want to avail of amnesty. But how many are those people? How many of our constituents still want to avail this amnesty, and how much in terms of estimates? I'm not going to require you to come up with a hard target, but at least some ballpark figure that we can work on. And also the question of Senator Nancy, what if we don't extend the period of availment? We end on 2017. How much is that also? Just ballpark lang, no? So we have some estimates.
Your Honor, we don't have the hard numbers, Your Honor. But the way we're seeing it, although we have reached already the initial estimate coming from 6.3, and with the second extension netting up to 7.4. But considering that there's a 2.5 billion collection from on the second extension, Mr. Chair, we probably could expect another 2.5 from this extension, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Nancy and then Senator Robin after.
Just for clarification, you don't have that data now, or there's no study or there's no target for you if we do extend this amnesty?
Mr. Chair, we don't have the data yet. Only sort of an estimate, probably a double of that or similar amount that may be generated than the similar amount to the one generated in the first extension. Mr. Chair, Madam Senator.
Siguro, Yusek, magkano ba na-collecta nyo sa estate tax? Separate from the amnesty. I mean, yung regular payment ng mga estate taxes. How much have you collected the past years? Or last year?
We'll request the BIR, Madam Senator, to provide answer.
Yeah, go ahead, BIR.
Mr. Chair, we're checking the total collection for the previous year because what we have now is the collection from the estate tax amnesty program. So we will check on that and we can come up with a report on the total collection for the previous year.
Ma'am, when can we get the data before we end the hearing?
Yes, ma'am.
Kasi, Mr. Chairman, I think importante din yan dahil katulad nga nung nabanggit kanina, bahagi dun sa House Bill extending the time frame, di ba? Yung dadagdagan natin yung years na kasama dun sa amnesty. I think very important na malaman natin kung magkano na ba yung nasingil nyo dun sa mga idadagdag namin na taon as part of the amnesty. And parang, Mr. Chairman, parang medyo nababahala din ako na parang walang pag-aaral na ginawa dun sa target if we do extend the tax amnesty. Yun lang po, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I received the statement of support from BIR as well as DOF. But the support cannot be ampaw support. No? The support should come up, should have some basis. No? And the best basis here is how much can we collect in addition to the extension. I mean, that's fundamental. No? That's a fundamental question that we all need to answer before we can move forward, or else we're just wasting we're wasting so much time. No? We're doing all of this hearing. We'll debate this on the floor. We'll talk about this in plenary. Pero wala naman palang makokolekta. No? So,
Mr. Chairman, just to add din ha, kasi di ba parang for me, the mere fact na na-reach na pala nila yung target, when we extended it the second time around, ang dahilan was because of the pandemic. Talaga namang walang naka-avail nung amnesty kasi nga nag-pandemic. Pero ngayon na apparently na-reach na pala nila yung target nila, so para kailangan bigyan din tayo ng compelling reason ng DOF tsaka ng BIR why we need to extend this tax amnesty. Yun lang po, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Padilla is recognized.
Maraming salamat po, mahal na tagapangulo. Meron lang po ako mga gustong makumpirma. Dito po sa binabasa ko, ang magmula po 2019, ang naka-avail po ng amnestiya ay nasa 133,860 taxpayers. Tama po ba?
Yes, Mr. Senator, Mr. Chair.
At
That's the total availers.
Opo. Kumpirmado po ito. Ganun po kadami. Bali, yung pong original po ninyong target na 6.28 billion, nasobrahan po ito dahil ang nakolekta po ninyo ay 7.4 billion. Tama po ba? Nalagpasan po. Nalagpasan. Opo. Napakaganda po nun. Ano? Ito pong tanong na ito, susunod kong tanong, medyo kailangan po namin uli, alam na, nasagot na po ito ng BIR pero hindi po tinitigilan ng mga matatawag nating peste, mga peste. Maraming pong peste. Yung mga peste, sinasabi po nila na kaya namin ito isinusulong at kaya din ninyo isinusulong itong extension muli ng estate tax amnesty. Dahil may kinalaman daw po ito sa utang ng Pangulo Marcos. Gusto ko po lang sagutin po ninyo ito na hindi po namin ginagawa ito dahil kami pong dalawa ng aking idolo, ang Einstein ng Senado, ay uniteam. Kasi po ang ibinibintang sa amin na pumopotakti sa radyo kaninang umaga, kami daw po ay ipipilit namin to para ma-avail ng Pangulong Marcos itong amnestiya. Nasagot nyo na po ito eh. Gusto lang po namin na sagutin nyo po uli na walang kinalaman nito sa ating Pangulo sa utang na sinasabi ng Supreme Court na may utang sila na sa estate tax. Pwede po bang malinawan natin lahat para malinaw po na kami pong dalawa, kami pong tatlong senador dito, hindi po kami gumagawa ng paraan para malibre ang ating mahal na Pangulo?
Good afternoon po ulit. Mr. Chair and members of the Committee on Ways and Means. Actually po kanina nabanggit na rin po ni Yusek Napao the reason why they're supporting this bill, and also as it can be shown in the preparatory statements po. Marami pa po talaga na mga hindi nakaka-avail ng estate tax amnesty, and in the past nga po yung extension naging maganda po ang epekto kasi nga po yung target na 6.28 nalagpasan po yun. So, naniniwala po kami na kapag to pinas, marami pa pong mag-a-avail, lalo na i-extend siya sa December 31 o 30, 2021. And simple, sa part po ng BIR, more revenues, marami pong magagamit na pampagawa, na bigay sa mga social services. Malinaw naman po yung purpose nung bills na present po sa amin. At binigay po ang full support ng ating BIR Commissioner. Yun lang po, sir, ang masasabi ko po.
Apo, yung pong sagot po doon sa napakahaba akong tanong. Opo. Kasi kami po'y binabanata ng aga-aga na ito ay ginagawa namin para pumabor sa ating mahal na Pangulo. Kayo po ang sumagot. Ito po ba, pag ito ay naipasa at inilaban ng ating chairman ng Ways and Means, totoo po ba ang sinasabi nitong mga peste na ito na makikinabang dito ang Pangulong Marcos?
Ang mga batas po naman po natin sa tax extension of estate tax amnesty from doon po sa unang batas natin na 11213, and the next is the RA 11569. Nakalagay naman po doon yung mga restrictions, limitations ng pag-avail. And I'm sure the present bill will also provide the restrictions and the limitations and the basis for availment. And doon po, yun po ang magiging basis ng BIR. The moment po na mag-avail ang isang taxpayer, we will evaluate the application based on what is provided for in the law, what are the restrictions provided for in the law po. Yun po ang magiging basis po ng evaluation ng BIR.
Si attorney, legal sir. Isang diretsong sagot. Isang sagot lang po, attorney, para maintindihan po ng taong bayan. Kasi isang diretso lang po. Kasi kung pababasa pa natin sa taong bayan yung ma-approve na batas, medyo ano po yan.
Kasi, Your Honor,
Justified na kami bago kami.
Ang magaling na abogado, hindi sumasagot ng diretso.
kasi po,
Isang
sir,
diretso lang pong sagot.
yeah, it will depend po kasi what will be the final version of the bill and what would be the contents of the bill as to the restrictions and limitations, and what would be the application of the applicant based on this bill. Then we will evaluate po kung ano po yung entitled ba siya o hindi, because there are restrictions. If they are not entitled, then we will not.
Doon po sa pumasa sa House. Nabasa niyo naman po siguro, kaya po tayo nagdidinig eh. Doon po sa version ng House at sa version po, meron naman po kayong kopya nito, boss, no? Lahat po naman nandito.
Meron po.
Andito po, 2159, 2170, 2174, 2197. Nandito din po yung House Bill 7909. Nabasa niyo naman po lahat ito.
Apo.
Sa palagay po niya po doon, doon sa nabasa niyo, hindi po ba ito magiging daan para mawalan ng bisa yung desisyon ng Supreme Court na pinagbabayad ang ating Pangulong Marcos? Yun lang po, isang tanong lang po kasi kami po'y pinapako na sa krus dito, aga-aga. Opo.
Yun po, sir. Yun nga po. Well, under the present bill, meron pong provision doon na meron provision na I think mini-maintain yung provision nung that's the original section I think 9 of RA 11213 no na kung may mga delinquent estate tax liability that will not be covered nung law. If that this will be carried out under the present law, then that will be the restriction of the application. But of course, yung applicant naman po no na taxpayer can always file if he thinks na under the present law he will be entitled to the provision based on the provision
Ibig niyo
of
pong
the law.
sabihin,
Meaning,
kasama po yung meron ng desisyon ng Supreme Court. Kasi parang ang naiintindihan po natin yung wala pang kaso ito yung mga delinquent yung pong nadesisyonan na ng Supreme Court, kasama pa rin po ba sila?
dito po sa present bill, mukhang nandun po yung original version ng 11213 about the restrictions on the non-inclusion of the delinquent estate tax liability.
Okay,
Yun po.
maraming salamat po, Chairman. Thank you po.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Senator Binay.
parang nabanggit kanina na marami pang mag-a-avail. But the mere fact na na-reach na yung target,
Senator Binay.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chair.
Senator, can you repeat your question? You got cut.
Kasi parang kanina, di ba, nabanggit nung taga-BIR na marami pang mag-a-avail. Ang tanong ko lang is, paano nila nasasabi na marami pang mag-a-avail when the mere fact na na-reach na yung 6 billion target? So,
That's a fundamental question we need to settle.
Answer. Diba? I mean, it would have been different pag sinabi nila na kulang pa ng, let's say, yung kunyari, yung 6 billion target, 4 billion pa lang yun na nakukuha nila. So yun talagang, it's a fact na meron pang pwedeng mag-avail. Kasi sa kanila naman galing yung target.
I'll
So-
show you a graph, no? Itong we plotted the payment. And then we saw in 2021 there's a surge in terms of payments, no? So yan, dito po sa, if you can see the slide, no? And the reason for that is because 2021, that was the time that the first amnesty will end, no? So there were a lot of people who trooped to the BIR to pay their estate tax and take advantage of the amnesty. But this is also COVID year. So in other words, despite COVID year, as long as you give the right incentive through an amnesty, people will avail the amnesty, no? So in extend natin, no, that we extended it, but you see the availers are not so significant anymore, no? So my point there is, what do we expect different once we extend, if ever we extend this amnesty, no? Kung kumbaga hindi na nga COVID year, hindi pa mataas, do we what expectations are we projecting, no? So in other words, we go back to the original question, no? What targets are you projecting? And these are targets, no? So we just want to justify to our constituents that we're extending this because government can collect more revenues. You mentioned a figure of 2.5 billion in addition. Is that what you projected?
Mr. Chair, perhaps if you'll allow us, you can have the computation to follow very soon, Mr. Chair. We just have to get hold of the data and also how the previous estimate was arrived when we had our 6 billion estimate projected before, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead, Senator Binay.
Ibig sabihin ho ba nito, wala kayong computation? I mean, for example, kunyari, ano yun, kung sa nagsasabit ng death certificate, wala bang ganong computation na X number yung namatay, tapos X number lang yung nagbayad ng estate tax? Wala bang ganong computation na ginawa? Kasi parang sa tono nyo ngayon pa lang kayo magko-compute eh. And Mr. Chairman, siguro just to highlight, remember, this is a tax measure. This emanated from the House. So I would assume na dapat may ganun na kayong data.
And I have a principle. I have a philosophy. Amnesty should only be given once. No, that's why it's called amnesty. If you keep on extending amnesty, might as well tanggalin na natin yung mga penalties and interest forever. Kasi if we will just extend it, no. The reason why the first round of amnesty became successful is because people thought that is the one and only amnesty. No? So if we extend it now, the whole essence of extending amnesty will not be there anymore because we keep on extending. So there must be a valid, compelling reason why we are extending the second time. This is the second time. So that's what we're driving at. No, that's where we're driving at. In the first, Senator Binay, in the hearing in the House, we didn't see any targets also. That's why I was hoping that this hearing in the Senate will have that piece of information, and that's a critical piece of information. That is a reason for us to proceed to extend. No, we have to remember this will be the second extension. No, so there must be a compelling, justifiable reason why we should extend it. No?
Mr. Chair, we will need to reach out to our, there's that surge group before. I think they were able to come up with the estimate for the whole amnesty program around 26 billion. And based on that, there were the amount that was allocated to the estimate that they did for the estate tax amnesty program is around 6.8 billion out of the 26. So we may just need to revisit that computation, Mr. Chair. During the House hearing, Mr. Chair, that we attended, the discussion there was that this is really to give a chance to our taxpayers or heirs that were not really able to settle their taxes during the pandemic, and that based on the hearing in the House, they were able to mention that there are these are the groups that we are giving chances of settling and giving them another chance to settle their asset tax liabilities, Mr. Chair.
But Yusek, I showed you in the slide earlier that even in 2021, people during the pandemic time, people paid. No? So the argument of the pandemic is diminished by the amount of taxpayers paid in 2021. In fact, after 2022, it went down already. No, this is after the pandemic. Ito nga, no? I'll show you the slide.
Mr. Chair, if we compare it in terms of amount, we only have the 61,000 availers generating 4.8 billion in amnesty taxes or payments. But if you look at the extended period, you only were able to generate 2.5 billion, but the number of availers there reach up to 72,000. So perhaps we can mention that those who have money were able to really avail of the opportunity to settle their taxes and avail of the amnesty. But those without enough money, or those who were still looking for this money to spend for the amnesty, they were able to avail just now, looking at the numbers vis-a-vis the amounts. So if based on that, Mr. Chair, if we are able to extend the amnesty, then perhaps we will cover those individuals that have less, have less cash to spend, to be able to or avail of this benefit, Mr. Chair.
Mr.
By
Chairman?
looking at
Yes,
the
Senator
numbers.
Binay, go
Oh,
ahead.
hindi. Pero kasi nga babalik na naman tayo dun sa na-reach nyo na yung target USEC eh. So saan nanggagaling yung sinasabi nyo na pwede pang mag-avail when in fact you've already reached the target? Yun, kumbaga, I think yun yung hinahanap namin.
We'll call on Attorney Siliciusi to chime in.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Chair. If I may share the views from the taxpayer. So what I've observed during the first availment from 2019 to 2021, there was a lot of interested taxpayers who wanted to settle, especially if there's a lot of decedents or for several estates, successive estates that were not settled yet, and estate taxes were remained unpaid. So but the problems that were encountered at that time is that the extrajudicial settlement, that document or the court order was required. So even if a lot were interested, but only a few availed because of the fact that they were having difficulty in complying with that document, the extrajudicial settlement or the judicial settlement or the court order. Now, for the second availment, it was already removed. That requirement was already removed. And those who were not able to availed of that amnesty. But we noticed, Mr. Chairman, that those who were not able to avail, even if they wanted to, but they have no means, they have no financial capacity to pay. So what, well, this was, it's not one of my client, but it was shared among, during some discussion that what they were able to afford to pay, then that's the only property that they declared. So it's still possible. And they were also asking if, is it possible to pay by installment, the estate tax? Because even if they wanted to settle, they have no means to do so. So ang naiwan na lang, ang nagka-avail is yung may means, merong pambayad. So yung mga gustong mag-avail, yung mga walang pambayad, even if it's like 100,000 or 200,000, even if they wanted to pay, wala talagang pambayad. Kasi puro lupa, talagang hindi siya liquidated na asset. Now, some they may have declared portion of the properties, and then yun lang yung binayaran nila. So ang nangyayari, it's to their advantage kasi parang nag-installment in effect during the 4 years, and if ever magiging 6 years yung extension. So I think yung benefit is for those who really have no means to settle in full yung estate tax amnesty, even the 6% rate. Marami talaga ang nahirapan din because they're just heirs, and then wala naman pambayad yung properties nila, lupa. And even if they want, yung iba ng utang, and then they sell. Pero marami, I would think maraming ganun. And then, so ang magbe-benefit nito are those group of taxpayers. And of course, if the expansion of the coverage from 2018 to 2021 ng mga estates, yun ang additional collection for the Bureau. Because it is during that time that, during the pandemic also, they're also struggling to come up with funds. So hindi lang So yung 2017 siguro konti na lang. But for 2018 to 2021, maybe yan yung siguro major additional source of collection for the Bureau.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead, Senator Nancy.
Hindi kasi 'di ba parang paulit-ulit mo nga nababanggit na nakakailang extension na tayo. But I don't know if ngayon dapat 'to pag-usapan, but siguro nga baka dapat pag-aralan na rin natin na baka let's do away with estate tax. Kasi parang hirap tayo mag-collect, and in a way 'di ba pag kunyari may mga properties naman yan, magbabayad din ng cap gains yung mga heirs pag nilipat nila sa pangalan nila. Kasi katulad nga nung nabanggit nung ating resource person, talagang hirap pagdating dun sa bayaran, lalong-lalo na pag nag-aaway yung magkakapamilya or there's not enough cash kasi puros lupa yung assets nung namatay. So baka maganda din tignan if policy-wise kung dapat na ba din natin pag-aralan na wala na to do away with estate tax. Yan lang po, Mr. Chairman.
That's a subject matter that that we will study, and I also am calling on the DOF and the BAR to study Senator Binay's proposal on removing estate tax all in all. No? I think that's a subject matter that we can look at later on as a proposal. No? Going by what Attorney Suzette mentioned earlier, kung wala na ho talaga silang maibabayad, then extending it will not do anything. Like, I just want to dive into that. No, if the capacity to pay is an issue, then extending it will not have any effect, because what happened is we exhausted everyone already. You know? Is that a valid comment?
Unless they want to avail of the extension as another means for paying in installment, your Mr. Chair.
Okay. But how can you pay it in installment? Because the BAR does not accept installment. So how do you pay in installments?
They will declare in the ETR that property that they can afford, and then they will amend for the next year. Then they pay another additional property, Your Honor. Mr. Chair.
Konti-konti, in other words.
Chairman.
Yeah, piecemeal, in other words. No? Yeah, Senator Binay?
Question, kasi di ba parang kung ang question lang pala ay yung giving them a longer time to pay, should we include a provision dun sa this amnesty na kahit tapos na yung amnesty, we will be parang giving authority to BIR na on their own they can already extend, kumbaga payagan nila yung hulugan. Can we get an opinion from kay Attorney Suzette? Kasi nga parang dun sa statement mo, lumalabas ngayon, it's the capacity to pay. Should we include na may ganong provision para hindi na babalik ulit to extend the amnesty, but to give that authority to BIR?
Attorney Suzette, you want to answer that or comment on that?
Yeah, for the current estate tax amnesty law, it does not provide for installment payment. But the recent tax code under the train law, it already provides installment payment, but not the prior law. So I'm not sure if baka nga I'm not sure if that's it's up for the legislature to decide.
Question is putting an installment provision in the bill, will that assist those who cannot pay and have problems in terms of capacity to pay? Is that feature something that can help collect additional estate tax? Kasi the argument here is we've reached a point, we've exhausted everyone who can pay. No? I think that's the argument. Now we're reaching out to those who has lesser capacity to pay. No? So an installment might be, a way for them to avail of the amnesty, no? Is that a possible feature? Because in the regular, there's installment, correct? But I know the argument here, amnesty na nga, may installment pa, no? So, yun ang argument. But I'm just saying, if we will extend this as it is, then wala tayong makokolekta, no? Wala tayong makokolekta. No, so we're actually tapping into our constituents who are not capable of paying one time. No? Kasi if they can pay one time, they've done it a long time ago. No? So is that a feature that the BIR and DOF can accommodate?
Sir, really, the tax code provides under the regular estate tax procedure for an installment. It's actually 2 years, no, to pay through installment. But in the amnesty, precisely because it is an amnesty that gives relief, no, to taxpayer in terms of paying the penalties for the non-payment. So parang parang yun nga, wala siyang provision on installment payment. Installment payment.
But if we do include that, is that a possible, administratively, is that possible?
BIR is doing it now. The
Yeah,
installment,
correct.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
possible, no? So if we
Under the
embed it-
regular estate tax
Yes.
payment, we're doing the installment.
Correct. So if we embed that here to help our poor constituents, I think what we want to tap here is our poor constituents na no? Administratively, it's not a problem. Conceptually, I think we'll reach out to a different segment of our taxpayers. Then I think it's logical to include that feature, an installment feature. You pay, but if you, for example, you pay, but if you forfeit, if you don't pay on time, then it's forfeited. No? Something to that effect.
Siguro,
Ah.
just Chairman, I think madami din dun sa mga heirs na hindi rin ganun ka-liquid. I mean, di ba, pwedeng marami silang lupa, pero wala naman silang cash. So, hindi rin nila kayang bayaran kaagad. So, baka kaya kailangan may ganitong hulugan, kumbaga, parang tiers muna kahit naka-amnesty na because baka nga yung hindi pa nila nabibigyan ng solusyon kung saan sila kukuha ng cash to pay for their estate tax.
Ika nga, diba, sa Tagalog, parang pinipiga ang dugo sa bato. Parang napiga na natin lahat So unless we offer something different or we offer something more lenient, then we will don't expect anything in return. Don't expect any collection, no? So a proposal is to embed a installment feature in the bill. Is that administratively is possible, no? But I just want to seek guidance from the DOF and the BIR, no?
Mr. Chair, based on our discussion, the installment provision may be a good provision, Mr. Chair. We are just requesting if we can just shorten it, say even for an installment for 1 year instead of the regular 2 years, considering that we have already removed the penalty. But I think that can be accepted, Mr. Chair, providing for a installment to accommodate as well our taxpayers and citizens who are in need of funds to avail of this amnesty, Mr. Chair.
That acceptable, Senator Binay, since this is your proposal?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Siguro, with the guidance from BIR, we'll just craft the proposed amendment.
We'll craft with the BIR that propose 1 year installment. Total naman in the regular estate, there's 2 years installment. No? So administratively, it's not a problem. It's just the concept that we're seeking guidance. And I would like to emphasize on the comment of Attorney Suzette being the representative of our taxpayers through TMAP, I think she made a very strong point, no, that we have already exhausted. Lahat ng kaya magbayad has already paid. No? And then we're now tapping into a segment of our constituents who are not liquid, who need extra assistance in terms of payment. Maybe with this installment, they can encourage their relatives or their family to cough up some amounts because it's easier for all of them. No? So I think it's a good feature that we can embed for humanitarian reasons. No, yeah. So with that, we'll carry that amendment, and I'm directing the committee secretary to take note and craft that language. No. Before I go back to DOF and BIR, let me go to other resource persons. Neda, who's here. Any comments on this bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Senator Win, Gatchalian, Senator Padilla, and Senator Binay. If you would allow me to just read the comments from our secretary that's cleared by Secretary Balasacan. So we are in support of the proposal extending the estate tax amnesty for another 2 years to give consideration to taxpayers who were unable to avail of the program given the mobility restrictions and limited operations of the government during the COVID-19 pandemic, and to those who were financially affected by income losses during the pandemic. We also note that the Estate Tax Amnesty Act broadly complements measures aimed at increasing tax compliance as contained in Chapter 11.2 of the Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028. The International Monetary Fund notes that a successful tax amnesty program is expected to increase the tax base, thereby increasing tax compliance and future revenue collection as tax evaders are brought into the tax net. Nonetheless, the amnesty program should be followed by a commitment to a stronger tax enforcement to increase compliance and ensure stable revenue gains. We also support the proposal of expanding the coverage of the availment of the estate tax amnesty for those who died on or before December 31, 2021, only amending Section 4 of Republic Act number 11213. This will help many taxpayers settle the tax liabilities and obligations of decedents during the pandemic, as they might have been unable to do so then, primarily due to financial constraints. And lastly, we support the proposal to amend Section 6 of Republic Act number 11213 to include a list of mandatory documentary requirements to be submitted to the Bureau of International or Internal Revenue to avail of the estate tax amnesty. While NEDA defers to the Department of Finance on the list of specific documentary requirements needed to be submitted, we deem that this proposed amendment will aid taxpayers to ascertain clearly the documents that need to be prepared and submitted to avail of the tax amnesty, and remove the unnecessary risk of the taxpayer's application being reverted or rejected for lacking other requirements not stated in the law. Thank you.
Thank you, Neda, for the statement of support. Do you have any? Yusek Napao mentioned earlier that there are multiplier effects. You know, for example, a transferred property can be productive. You know, for example, you can build, you can do a joint venture with a real estate company. You can now build buildings. You cannot build subdivisions. It becomes productive, and it will contribute to the economy. You know? Do you have any study pointing to the multiplier effects of properties that will be transferred and put into productive use? And also looking at the past transfers, there were close to about 100,000 plus availers. Obviously, these availers have properties and assets, and those will now be turned around and put into productive use. No? So those who availed, do we have estimates on how much it will contribute to our economy? No? And those who will avail, no, in the future, how much it will contribute to our economy? So from a macro perspective, this does not only contribute to government coffers, but it also contributes to economic activity. No? So do we have that study?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. None at the moment, but we do acknowledge the reasoning that you've given us. We do agree with that the revenues that we can gain from this program here will have multiplier effects in the economy.
Not only revenue, but the assets itself. No? For example, if someone will now legally own a property, they can do whatever they want with that property. Most likely sell, put it into productive use. But do we
Agreed.
have that number or that multiply? There's a multiplier effect, I'm very sure. But do we have that for now?
Unfortunately, Your Honor, we don't have that at the moment.
Why
But
did you
we
support
do.
this bill?
Uh,
If you don't have that number, why did you support this bill? That's what I'm saying. You guys nagsusupport kayo ng bill pero ampaw naman yung support
Be-
niyo. But you
because-
guys have to have a basis for supporting the bill.
because
Not
it's
because we filed it, that it doesn't mean that we will push it. No, we want to also hear from the supporters on why the bill is relevant and can deliver positive results. But you have to substantiate it.
Your Honor, if we may point out, just looking at the numbers in this year, 2023, just the first 3 months, and comparing that with the preceding years, the first 3 months of the preceding years, 2021 and 2022, you would observe that the number of taxpayers have increased. So it seems that even with just the first 3 months of this year, parang meron pang mapipiga from the bato.
I don't get what you're saying, honestly. But I think it should be, next time you come to a hearing, be prepared. No, especially from NEDA. I expect a lot from NEDA. No, NEDA is supposed to be our economic think tank. So should guide us on the macro activities of the country. So. But in any case, just submit to us, no, your study. I know there is definitely positive impacts, no? But give us a thorough study on how the current amnesty, no, the one we are implementing now, contributed to economic activity, no, and how the future amnesty can contribute to economic activity. So submit to us a study on that. No? We'll call on LRE. Just LRE. Representative from the LRE. Any comments, ma'am?
Your Honor, we fully support the extension of the estate tax amnesty law. Being on the ground,
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
going to ask you. Kasi I'm looking at the resource persons. You're one of the few that is really on the ground talking to people. So kahit na anecdotal, maybe you can share with us your conversations with your constituents, with people from tama ba? Tres
Yeah.
Martires?
no sir, Mandaluyong City. Sir.
Mandaluyong.
While interacting with our registrants, I was also exposed in Parañaque. We would get siguro in a day, 3 to 5 extrajudicial settlements. And those settlements would be intertwined with what? 2 to 3, 4 dissidents. So in one property, ang dami nilang babayaran. And what they do is, if they already paid their taxes, the amnesty tax, they go to the registry of deeds. They pay maybe for 1 transfer, 2 transfers. So I support yung magkaroon ng the yes sir, payment terms, because Now, ang lumalapit ngayon is medyo hirap po magbayad with in terms of amnesty with the taxes. So, it would really be good na magkaroon ng payment terms. And also, hindi lang po kasi hindi lang po kasi estate tax ang binabayaran nila. They still have transfer tax sa LGU and then the registration with the RD. So hindi lang tayo limited sa taxes nationally. So and I think the LGUs also give discounts in terms of the transfer tax. I'm not really sure. But for the RD, our basis for payment of the registration fee would be the current assessed value, not the assessed value at the time of death. Yeah. But so that's it. That's it, Your Honor.
Thank you, Attorney. Attorney Suzette, can you any comments to the bill? I'll go back to you. No, you mentioned about our poor constituents needing assistance, but in addition to that, some of the bills, particularly my proposal, is to already specify the requirements, no, as well as distinctly separate the payment from the application for transfer. No? And at the same time, we also included a feature of a filing only one time, no, for different estates. No, so these are the three features that we included in the bill. And any comments to that? No, I particularly want to hear from you your experience, no, assisting your clients or your friends in terms of estate tax payments, no? Sorry, availment of the amnesty estate tax, so that we can already embed in the bill how to correct the difficulties that they encounter on the ground. No?
Yeah. For the amendment to the bill that you proposed, Mr. Chair, I agree that you first your proposal to for the payment in any authorized agent bank. So anywhere, file anywhere, pay anywhere. That would be very helpful. Second, the clear enumeration of the documents, the mandatory documents, although those are exactly the same documents that are now being required by the BIR. But it also helps that it's already there in the law, so there will be no further amendments in the regulations. My comment for the okay, it may not be the intent, but I want to clarify, Mr. Chair. For the provision on the filing of one ETR for all, like, for an estate with several preceding estates, it may be construed as covering all the other previous estates. That may not be, I don't think that that's the intention of the.
The intention.
Oh, that's the intention.
That's
So,
the intention.
so there will be, so only one estate tax will be paid for the which would be for the latest estate. But for the previous estates or the previous transfers, there would no longer be any separate estate tax.
The intention, because we also got feedback from constituents that, for example, they have generations, diba? So right now you have to pay one, and then the one generation after the other after the other. No, so the proposal here is just to have one transfer and value it on at the death of the last decedent.
So the intention is to waive even the estate tax of the previous estates, as long as they are already transferred.
Yes.
Okay.
It's another way of enticing our constituents to avail of amnesty, you know, because right now it's complicated. No, you pay one and then you pay for the next generation. Now it's only one availment for all the different estate
In from the point of view of those taxpayers that I mentioned before, that's exactly the problem why the estate taxes accumulated through the years. So even if there's only 6% minus all the other surcharges and interest, kailangan nilang i-consider yung estate 1, 2, 3, and 4. That proposal would really help. That would really generate more, encourage more availments of the estate tax amnesty. Although it's a different matter if for the BIR, because it's really an estate, waiving of estate taxes that accrued for all prior estates.
Correct. But like you said, no, we're now tapping into the poorest constituents. No, so imagine if you have a poor constituent and they have intergenerational transfers, it's going to be quite costly for our poor constituents. So that's why we included that feature as a additional come on, no, or additional support for our poor constituents. No? And my argument there is we're not getting anything anyways. No? So might as well get something rather than get nothing. Because if you don't do that, they won't do anything. So the asset remains unproductive. So that's the argument why we included that. I understand that was a feature in the previous tax amnesty extension. No? The original tax amnesty. No? But it was vetoed. No? So we are reintroducing that feature. It was vetoed before because because obviously in the beginning you want to collect more, but we reach a point where you cannot collect anymore. We're squeezing blood out of stone. So that's a feature that we want to reintroduce so that we can entice more availers. Plus the one you suggested of installment.
Yeah.
No?
That amendment would be very much beneficial to those, to the remaining taxpayers who haven't availed yet.
Yeah. So my counter argument there is not only because first we're not collecting anything anyways. No? So even though we collect, let's say 1/5 of what we're supposed to collect compared to the old regime or the old process, at least the asset has been transferred and they can sell the asset. Right now kasi the asset is dead. So that's my argument. But we'll hear DOF on that. I know it was vetoed in the first amnesty. But the first amnesty and the second extension are wildly distinct in terms of scenarios, no? In terms of who we want to target, no? That's the argument there. But we'll listen to the DOF and the BIR on their comments. I can see them whispering, and I think there's a intense discussion on that provision. But we'll listen to them. No? Any more, Attorney Suzette? Any more you want to share from your experience on the ground?
No further comment.
Thank you,
Mr.
thank you. BLGF, to our executive OICED, Mr. Bopis, any comments?
Yes, sir. The Bureau supports the bill because this also increases the local tax collection on real property, including tax on transfer. That goes to the LGUs. This translates to the transfer on record translates to 8.2 billion all transfers, including the effect of the amnesty in 2021 and 9.8 billion in 2022. So we expect additional income for LGUs if this passes.
Fundamental question, does the tax amnesty cover tax declarations? For example, there are some lands that are just tax declaration, di ba? And then somebody died and they want to pass it on to their heirs. Is it covered by this law?
As long as the death is covered by the period covered by the law.
So it's covered.
Yes, sir.
So in other words, they have to pay 6% on the value of that tax declaration?
Yes, sir.
All right. Sige. All right. So I'll go back, Senator Padilla, any? Well, I'll go back to DOF, no, and I want to expound on some features that we introduced in the bill, no. And I want to start with the reintroduction of that one-time payment, no. I know the argument. I read the veto message, but I want to get your comment on that. And you've heard my argument. This time is a different scenario, eh. No, in 1990, in 2019 is a different scenario. Now is a different scenario. No, so I want to get your comment on reintroducing that feature in the bill as a way to entice more availers.
Mr. Chair, we think it's a different situation. Well, we have discussed earlier that the reason why those who aren't able to avail is that they don't have the means, or they're not liquid. But I think there are good numbers still there that they are not able to avail because they are not liquid, but their properties are still uh, in big value. So if we change the rule into like say the previous rule is that for every transfers there should be a 6% rate applied to the for each transfer. And anyway, for each transfer, the value that will be used is the value at the time of death. That would be different from where you will lump it up and you will only base the value based on the latest decedent. As mentioned, this provision was vetoed because the intention really before was for the amnesty availment to be on a per transfer basis.
Counter argument to that is we're not collecting anyways, no? And I'll call it intergenerational. The intergenerational transfers cost money, no? You're computing 6% and 6%. So as a way to entice, we just and as a way to assist, no, our constituents, we just compute one. At least by that time, they can transfer the property to their names and they can put the asset into productive use. So rather than we don't collect anything and the assets are not productive, no? So that is the logic that I want to put on the table, no? So I know that in terms of looking at the bottom line, it's a significant reduction from what we can collect. But then again, if they don't pay, we don't collect anything, no? So that's the argument that I want to put forth.
May presentation po.
In re
Your Honor, I think the difference in scenario, that would, I think, would not make the whole population of transfers be the same or uniform with the introduction of the last decedent that we are going to tax only. What we are okay with, Mr. Chair, is that we will agree to providing installment basis And then perhaps as an additional incentive, we can put in the provision that the commissioner, as approved by the SOF, Secretary of Finance, can choose to extend the period of installment if necessary, perhaps for another year, if warranted, Mr. Chair. We can add that as additional.
Di gwapo pa si Commissioner. Di kami nilang gwapo. Gawin na lang namin 2 years. Di ba? Kami na lang ang mas gwapo. Di ba? Well, that's a that's a good counter offer. It's a good counter offer, but study it. No, I study this provision on the one-time payment. No, for lack of a better term, but a one-time payment for intergenerational transfers or intergenerational estate taxes. No, again, I know the sentiments of BIR and the DOF on this. And I know that it was vetoed in the past, no? And the veto basically says that we lose collection. But my counter argument, we're not collecting from them, no? So study it carefully, no? As a matter of assistance. I know that extending payment terms is already a big come on. But if you can extend some more, no, because my point is not only helping but putting the asset into good use. That's where I'm coming from. We can collect 1 peso, we can collect 1 million, we can collect 100 million. But the most important there is that asset is now putting into good use, or else we have so many assets lying there, and because they cannot pay estate, they cannot transfer it, nothing's happening. No?
Mr. Chair, perhaps as an additional input, but although it may not be proper under the tax amnesty bill, there's an option to peg the rate at 6%, even after the amnesty has lapsed. But that would require an amendment to the provision of the tax code, making it not only for 2018 and after deaths, but also to those that are the ones that are being covered under this amnesty bill 2017 and prior. Meaning to say, we will not anymore go back to the 20%, 0 to 20% rate. At the time of death, we can peg it at 6%, but I think that would be another bill. Because it requires amendment to the rate and the section 84.
In other words, those who have those who passed away in a long time ago under a different tax rate will now be pegged at the current 6% tax rate.
That can be an option, Mr. Chair, because what will happen is that after the lapse of the amnesty, those who are not able to avail, they will go back to whenever they will finally settle with the BIR and file the return on those undeclared, uncovered property. They will go back to the rate at the time of death. And prior to 2018, the rate is, there's a table there, is 0 to 20% graduated.
I have a counter offer. I was discussing it with our STSRO. Right now, the prevailing rate is at the time of the dissident, diba? Can we just peg it at 6% regardless what time?
Actually, Your Honor, the rate now is 6%.
Correct.
But the 6% rate took effect when the train law was passed, and that was in January 2018. Prior to January 2018, the rate is graduated rate. I think from
Zero.
0 to 20%. Under the tax code, the rule is the rate at the time of the estate tax shall be based on the applicable rate at the time of death. And this was amended nga, no, this was changed by the amnesty. Now the amnesty is 6% to all deceased persons who died prior to 2017. The rate is 6%. We will no longer go back to the graduated rate. It's straight 6%.
Straight 6%
Yes.
regardless of the time.
Yes,
of,
under the amnesty law.
under the amnesty.
Under the estate amnesty law.
Okay.
But those who failed to avail of the estate tax amnesty, availing of the 6%, and now who died prior to 2017 and now will avail, assuming that we will not extend this, avail of this estate tax, they want to transfer now, get the car, then they have to pay the rate applicable at the time, the death of the decedent. So if it is graduated rate, then that's the rate to be applied, plus penalties.
There, and the amnesty is straight 6.
Yes, Your Honor.
Regardless of
Yes,
the time.
regardless of the time, that's straight 6 under the
Okay,
amnesty.
alright, okay, okay. That, actually, that was I was going to point out, but since that is being implemented, so my request is just to study this proposal. No? Again, let's not look at just the collection, but how we put the asset into good use. That's where I'm coming from. Because this law has two benefits. Collection and productivity.
Yes.
So I'm looking at productivity as well. No? Collection, to be honest about it, if you look at the 7 billion out of the total revenue, it's not significant. No? But the economic activity that it will generate, no, I think I'm looking at that angle. No? So just study that proposal. Yeah. There's also, in our bill, we also specified the requirements. Is this amenable to the BIR? Any comments to that? It's not really an innovation per se, no, but we included this just to give comfort to our taxpayers that the requirements are already set, because we heard from several constituents, no, here in the Senate, who are trying to avail of the amnesty, that sometimes, no, I'm not even saying all the time, sometimes the requirements vary in different RDOs. No? For example, the requirement for extrajudicial settlement, no, that's not required anymore, correct? For payment of to avail the amnesty, but in some areas, no, that is being required, and that takes time. No, that aspect takes time. So we want to reiterate that only these items are the ones required in order to pay your estate tax through the amnesty. Is this any comment on this?
We have no objections on that putting into the law, Your Honor. But just want to note or emphasize that these were already included or part of our revenue regulations that are supposed to be followed by all the revenuers. But if this will provide comfort and clarity to all the availers, we have no objections, Your Honor.
The only thing that is not in your revenue regulation is the last proviso. Provided finally that no other document shall be required other than what are provided under this act, no? Which gives the signal to our constituents that these are the documents that are exclusively required to avail of the amnesty. No? But I'll show you a list of requirements. This was sent to us by a constituent of ours. Hindi ko na ho sasabihin kung anong RDO ito. Ang dami palang RDO dito eh, no? But I won't mention anymore, no, where we got this. This is a document that was required from one of our availers, no? And if you look at the requirement, no, nakasulat dito, deed of extrajudicial settlement if estate has been extrajudicially kumabasa. Yep. Yeah. So in any case there, no, you can see from the slide. So from what I see is there are this is a document, no, walang nakasulat which RDO, but it was being given out to our constituents, and this led to a lot of confusion. So now some of our constituents, especially those who cannot hire lawyers, those who cannot hire accountants, no? Those who are not experts in this type of transactions. So when they get this document, their first instinct is to fulfill all of those listed, including the extrajudicial settlement, which is, all we know, is a complicated document to get, especially if the heirs are not in good terms. So this is where we're coming from, why we included a list of requirements. No? But for the record, do we need the extrajudicial settlement when we avail of the amnesty?
Your Honor, the requirements that are being shown now are the our checklist of requirements for our regular estate tax filing. But for purposes of availment of the amnesty, we have a Form 2118EA, wherein we have at the back guidelines on how to avail. And these are the listed documents that are needed for purposes of availment. But for the issuance of the electronic certificate authorizing registration that will be needed for the transfer of the titles already or the tax declaration for assessor's office, then that will be the ones required. And it was specifically stated at the back of our form. So meaning, upon availment and upon payment, that will not be needed to be presented in our offices, so they can automatically avail, and the RDO should be issuing the certificate of availment as a proof that they have already availed of the amnesty. But if they will already transfer the property, then that would be needing an ICAR or the electronic certificate authorizing registration, then that would be the time that we will really need the proof of settlement. It's either self-adjudication or the EJS or the court order if it is a judicial settlement among the heirs.
For availment of the amnesty, you don't need it. But I have a document here. This is from your guidelines and instruction. Can you flash it? Under the mandatory requirements, number 5. Affidavit of self-adjudication or deed of extrajudicial settlement, EJS of estate of the decedent.
Yes, Your Honor, the title is for issuance of the ICAR. That's the one I was explaining.
So when you pay your amnesty,
Availment.
you don't need the ICAR yet.
No need yet.
No need the
No need.
ICARs.
Because after the payment, after the processing of all the documents that are being computed for the availment, then it will come later, the ICAR.
So in other words, the payment and the transfer is a separate activity. Okay.
And also, Your Honor, in addition, it's very important that the availer should get the certificate of availment, because the effect of amnesty is to relieve from all taxes, penalties, and from civil, administrative, and criminal liabilities. No, so the moment mayroon na siyang certificate of availment, that's the effect. Entitled na siya sa immunities nung amnesty, sir. It's not the ICAR. ICAR is just the transfer of the property.
The document the availer should have is that certificate of availment. Okay, and if I want to transfer, that's where I
Yeah.
submit the extrajudicial
correct, sir.
settlement, and then at the end, I'll get my e-card,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I will submit to
Yes.
the registered deeds, no, the registered deeds. Okay, so I want to put that on record so that those who are listening will be guided, because we get a lot of our constituents are not experts. No, some of them are um, just ordinary constituents who cannot avail of lawyers and accountants, and they do it themselves. No, and of course, any information that they get from the RDO or even from Facebook. In fact, some of my comments come from Facebook. They take it hook, line, and sinker, no, and that complicates things, no. So that's where we're coming from. Why we embedded the requirements in the law, so that those who will be reading it will understand that these are the only requirements needed. No, and it's cut and dry. No. Yes, Attorney Sudet.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this may not be relevant to this law, but it's related. It's for the processing or for the payment of the estate tax. Maybe the BIR might consider also not requiring that extrajudicial for the taxpayer to pay the estate tax, because that's been happening also now. So even if it's outside the estate tax amnesty, but for maybe the BIR might consider also accepting the payment for estate tax even without the extrajudicial document settlement.
That's for the amnesty.
For the
For the
regular estate
regular,
tax,
regular.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
because
we can discuss that on a separate no.
Yeah.
But that's a good suggestion, Attorney Suzette. I have one. I just want to probe into this requirement. There's a requirement for certification of punong barangay for the last resident of the dissident and claim family home. No? Is that a mandatory requirement?
Because family home is a deduction from the gross estate. So we have to establish if that is really the family home in case there are several residential properties that are being declared for purposes of transfer.
They can have they can only claim one family
Yes
home.
po.
Okay. How will the punong barangay determine if that is the family home or not?
The certification usually would only state that that is where they are residing, the decedent. Not necessarily saying that it's a family home. But that is the residence.
So, but
of-
that's my point. So it defeats the certification, because the certification is for a family home. And then if you are going to certify, if you are looking whether the physical home is there, you're mandated to submit the tax declaration, correct? Of the house. They're mandated to certified true copy of tax declaration. So the tax declaration is the ultimate proof that the house exists.
For purposes of claiming the deduction,
Mm-mm.
because that will be a deductible property in the total gross estate.
Okay, I understand that, but my point is, I'm trying to as much as possible, I'm trying to lessen the point of contact. You know, the barangay is another point of contact. So I'm trying to understand the logic of that requirement and the ability of the barangay captain to determine whether that is your family home. Kasi like for example, sa Valenzuela, one of our barangays, we have 120,000 constituents. Pag tinanong ho yung barangay captain doon, ang sagot niya, hindi ko ho alam kung saan nakatira yan eh. And a lot of time, the certification is pro forma. No, you just give them the you pay the certification fee and they sign it. No, so but that's for the taxpayer. That's another point of contact. That's another process. No, so I'm trying to understand what is the role of the barangay, the barangay in the process of availing the amnesty. No? Because if you want to determine the existence and the value, there's tax declaration already. Yeah, certified true copy of the tax declaration. No? So if you want to determine the family home, I would assume the family home dapat nakatira siya talaga doon, and but all of us will have several family homes, di ba? The only point that you want to certify that because they can avail of only one family home, no? Only one. So, but I would assume that regardless of that certification, you will only allow one. Now, with or without it, you will only allow one. So if I have 10 homes, it doesn't matter if all of that is my family home, but you will only allow one. Correct? So why do you need the barangay captain? Yun yung iniisip ko lang, no? And let's be practical. Not all barangay captains know their constituents, no? Lalo na yung mga sa subdivision. Pag sa Forbes, I don't think alam ng, well, yung kapitan doon yata, taga Forbes, no? Let's say another gated village, no? I'm trying to eliminate point of contacts para mabilis taxpayer natin, no? Yeah.
Yes, Your Honor, we will look into that, and maybe in the implementing regulations or issuances that we will have, we will do away and instead maybe replace it a self-declaration or sworn declaration of the filer na lang. Pwede na yun.
Yeah, that can be possible. That's a possible sworn declaration, because regardless if I declare 10, you will only allow one anyways. The value until 10 million, no? The value until 10 million, no? So it's not really the truthfulness of your family home, but it's the allowed family home, no? The number of allowed homes actually, regardless of the family home, no? So please look into that also, no? Remove that. Can remove that from our bill. Yeah, I'm trying to make it as convenient as possible to our availers. No? And lastly, we also introduce another feature, no, in page 5 of the bill, that the application for payment of estate taxes shall be distinct and separate process from the application for transfer of properties. In reality, this is what's happening, but we just want to reiterate in the bill, no, because there's a lot of confusion. In fact, some of the feedbacks that we are getting, that and again, no, I hindi ko naman generalize all the RDOs, but some RDOs require it, parang sinasabay nila. The sinasabay nila availment of amnesty, sinasabay nila yung transfer, no? Whether this is validated or not, these are things that we hear from the ground, no? So just to make it clear in the bill that it's separate and distinct, we wrote it as part of the feature of the bill, no? Is that something, any comment to that?
We have no comments on that, Your
All
Honor.
right, okay. So, actually, anything that you want to comment?
Nag-agree mo sila.
Okay, sige. We'll just include it in the bid, yeah. I have no more question except for how much nga can we collect? No, I think we go back to the original. I think we go back to the original, ano. Well, let's put it this way, no. The initial estimate is 2.5 billion. Let's peg it at that. I think that's from Yusek's calculator in his brain. That seems to be a logical. Oh, isang abogado, isang finance expert. So the 2.5 should be a workable figure. But I think the comment of Attorney Susette is the most important, no? I think she pointed out that we are tapping into our poor constituents, no? Those who can avail, those who have the cash have already paid, no? So what we're now going into are their constituents who cannot pay. And the installment feature is a very good feature. I think that will entice a lot of our constituents, and it's a feature that will help. No, it's not only enticing but help our poor constituents. And again, we're asking NEDA to calculate the economic returns. Definitely, my economic returns. No. The collection is just a small part of the bigger picture, which is putting the asset into good use. That's the philosophy out of this. Any comments from our RDOs? Mga OIC? Oo nga eh. Sila any comment? Do you want any, di ba kung meron kayong gusto i-share from the ground? Sir, yes, go ahead. But feel free. No, we want to hear your experiences. Any suggestion that you want to include in the bill? No, kayo po yung frontliner, so mas kabisado nyo yung nangyayari sa ground.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and all attendees. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. This is my personal view about regarding doon sa installment. Oh. Actually, this was already built in the law because di ba mayroon tayong provision doon na we allow piecemeal transfer. Now, we have at 2 years period. Now, yung gusto mag-installment, yun lang kaya niyang bayaran na i-avail. That's my comment. Another one is I support the productive effect of this law. It is a fact, not only the collection from the estate tax, but for the capital gains tax, because mostly, lahat ng mga bumibili ng properties is una-una, tinatanong nila kung nasa pangalan mo ba ito? Buhay pa ba ang may-ari? Now, once na free yung property, I mean, nasa tunay na pangalan ng seller, kaagad na yan may effect na another 6% because of, kasi the sale will be pushed through. Doon na naman sa financial incapacity issue, no? Kung tingnan ninyo, yung mga average, mga counting properties, ang batas natin ay nandyan na, mayroon tayong may allowance na yan sa mga standard deduction, family home. Mostly sa aking nakikita are exempted. So only 5,000. Now doon na naman sa maraming properties, hindi natin yan magawa na issue because kung marami kang properties na i-transfer, why not sell? Ibinta ng iba. Okay? So, doon na naman sa barangay certificate. Actually, kaya yan hinihingi dahil siyempre, lagi tayong nag-aim ng malaking to level the playing field. Now, kung hayaan mo yung mga taxpayer na silang mag-point out, siyempre ang hihingiin is, kukunin na deduction is, yung pinaka malaking value. So, I think that's all for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any comments from the other RDOs? Yeah, go ahead, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Senator Padilla, Senator Binay, and all the attendees here present. As regards the unlocking of the land market, yung productivity of the property, actually, based on our experience, Cebu is actually a booming province when it comes to the real property. So, usually transactions, state tax amnesty transactions are usually coupled with a sale transaction and the buyer a real estate developer. So we are actually unlocking the productive capacity of the an idle property by subdividing it and selling also to the residents of Cebu, and not only the residents of Cebu, even yung mga nakatira outside Cebu. So actually, it's marami talaga siya. It's a multiplier talaga for businesses, for the BIR. And also, I would like also to comment on one of the requirements, which is the certified true copy of death certificate. Actually, ang nakalagay dyan, certified true copy of death certificate. But there are comments, since this, the transactions actually involves yung sasabi nga natin, intergenerational transfer. So usually, the heir is actually maybe the fifth of or the sixth generation. They could no longer determine the date of death of their ancestor. So in getting the death certificate, they are actually encountering problems in determining kung yung date of death. So they could no longer proceed with the processing of the requirements. So maybe if we could add that in the absence of death certificate or any equivalent proof, just like records from the parish church or doon sa religious organization nila, or in the event na talagang wala, maybe we could add an affidavit of two disinterested person.
That's a good point. However, I am quite if the death certificate, I would assume, will be an important document, no,
Yes.
to
Yes, Your Honor.
to really determine that
Yes.
there is a reason to transfer the or the reason to pass it on to their heirs, no.
Yes.
So in what do you suggest in the absence of that? I get that a lot also from our constituents. In fact, not only intergenerational. Sometimes, for example, yung I got that comment. Meron tayong ano, 'di ba, yung 100 years old incentive, no? Centenarians, no? And even centenarians, they have problems getting documents, no? So, what do you suggest that we can replace the death certificate with for intergenerational dissidents?
Maybe we could add as an additional requirements in case there is no records in the PSA, in the civil registrar, in the parish church. Will it be enough? Maybe it is enough to execute a sworn statement or an affidavit of two disinterested person who will testify or who will validate the veracity of the facts of death of the dissident.
We'll take note of that, and also BIR will. I'm thinking whether to put that in the IRR or just put it on record now that in cases of intergenerational death and documents cannot be retrieved anymore because of the long period of time, we can already include other forms of documents, no? Such as a sworn statement or other forms, no? Right now, talagang it's just purely death certificate. So what if they don't get, lalo na yung mga matatagal na, what do they do? Yeah, because it's in mandatory requirement eh. Number 1 yan eh.
Without the death cert, kaya nga po, Your Honor, hindi sila makapag-umpisa for the
So
processing.
they cannot do the step 1.
Yes,
Okay. Marami bang ganyan based on your experience?
marami po.
In Cebu, no? Especially Cebu. Cebu is a it's a heritage area eh. No? Yeah, yung mga heritage like sa Karkar, mga 400, 500 years na yung mga bahay doon.
Malalaki.
Yeah. So yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you for that suggestion. That's a very good suggestion. Yeah, ma'am.
Your Honor, in our Revenue Memorandum Circular 68-2019, question number 35, we have considered a certificate from the PSA that there's no record of death. So we we can accept that already. And any valid secondary evidence. So maybe, oo. Kung idadagdagan na lang natin dito sa mga mandatory requirements na idugtong na lang po natin. Kasi on the ground, we are already implementing the acceptance of this kind of document.
Secondary,
Or any valid secondary evidence.
such as, ano yung...
Including but not limited to those issued by any government agency.
What are the examples of secondary evidence? Just examples lang. So we can put on record we can cite some examples. Unang barangay ulit.
Sentence that we wrote is that but not limited to those issued by any government agency or office sufficient to establish the fact of death of the decedent may be submitted.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Sige, thank you.
So idudugtong na lang po natin dito siguro.
Yeah,
sa
to make it ano rin. Like in
Para on
PSA
record.
kasi, not especially yung mga matatagal na, I don't think it's in their computer records anymore eh.
Wala na po.
No? And we also have cases of nasunog yung PSA, local PSA, nasunog yung civil registrar. We have a lot of that. No? So, yeah, we'll include that also, Attorney Dasil. All right. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that suggestion. Any comments from the others? Baka you have comments?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Senator Papadilla, good afternoon, sir. Sir, extending the state tax amnesty is a big service to our Filipino people. Because in RDO 39, sir, we cater dun sa mga non-resident citizen na nasa abroad. There's talagang malaking clamor to extend the state tax amnesty, sir. Kung masasabi ko lang sa ang mga figures na nag-avail ng mga nasa abroad, from 2019 to 2023, ang nag-file ng estate tax amnesty, sir, from yung galing sa abroad, is 1,953, sir. Yung
These are non-resident, meaning they're living abroad.
yeah,
already.
yeah. They
But
live
are they're Filipinos or halo-halo na?
Filipinos and yung aliens, sir, na may properties dito.
Okay, all right.
So, marami po ang RDO 39 is a unique district, sir. Eh.
Yeah. You're the one handling non-residents. diba?
Yes, sir.
Do we have data how many are the total availers?
In our record, sir, non-resident, sir,
The total.
1,953. And then yung residents, sir, under the jurisdiction of RDO 39, 2,031. So from 2019 to 2023, yung nag-avail po is 3,984 individuals.
Ang total natin availers of amnesty. Do we have that record?
133,860 up to March.
Okay.
And as of April, Your Honor, we have already 137,691.
So 133.
As of
Ah,
March
six-
po yun.
Yeah.
As of April is already 137,691. And a total collection of 7.555 billion.
And out of this 137,000, 3,000 tama ang non-resident, no? Okay. All right. Okay. Sige.
So that's why we fully support the extension of the state tax amnesty, sir. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Kay Ma'am Celia, do you have any comments?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Senator Padilla, Senator Binay. Ako po ay RDO ng 13 Martires. Malaking population po ang kinasasakupan ng distrito namin, 4 na cities and 8 municipalities. I fully support your intent na this time itong extension ng amnesty is for the poor talaga. Kasi ang population po sa distrito ko ay marami po ang nasa mababang sir. May I recommend lang din po na sana matulungan, kung ang intent po talaga is to help the poor, may I recommend na matulungan kami ng LGU, ng local, na i-inform, magkaroon kami ng exchange of information para po yung mga dissidents na may mga properties po ay pwede po naming sulatan at ma-encourage po talaga na mag-avail ng amnesty. Yan lang po, Senator.
Thank you. I think in terms of information campaign, this is widely disseminated. But of course, when we push through with the extension, we need everyone's help, no? The RDOs to once again push this to the ground. And I think we have a good selling point at this time, no? Giving them the ability to pay in payment terms, and then at the same time we manage to reduce some requirements such as the barangay requirements, also additional additional replacement document for death certificates, and we also itemized here the documents that are really needed just to transfer. So I think the bill is quite encompassing, no, in terms of helping our constituents. I thank everyone for sharing us your thoughts on that. So I don't have any more questions. Just a few reminders from our friends from the DOF and BAR. Of course, the never-ending revenue projections, NEDA, the multiplier effects of the current and future amnesties, and any information that you can provide us in support of this extension will be highly appreciated. So with that, Senator Padilla, any more questions? Kung wala naman po, again, thank you very much for your time and openness, and of course your statement of support. Medyo paspasan ho to, no? We don't have how many session days do we have? 6 session days. So we'll try to sponsor this on Monday, latest Tuesday. Hopefully we can end the debates next week, close it, and then the following week we get it ratified, no? After the BICAM. And I requested USEC if we can get after coming up with the committee report, if you can get a certification from the president so we can do away with the 3-day rule, that will be the best, no? At least we will not scrimp on time. All right, so any more last words, Yusek Napao?
Nothing more, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, thank you. Assistant Commissioner Barcelo, any?
Thank you for this opportunity, Your Honor.
Thank you very much to everyone. And of course, I thank the presence of our ever supportive and hardworking Senator Robin Padilla, who had very important, valid points. Alam nyo, I was telling Senator Padilla earlier, maraming malilukot ang isip sa atin, eh, no? And we don't want, that's why we want to establish the facts and get information so that everything that we do are grounded on evidence, grounded on facts, and we will not do anything to jeopardize the real benefit of this measure. So I thank Senator Padilla for staying with us from start to the end. Maraming salamat po. This hearing is hereby adjourned.